Hello, I was just about to say, please say hi if you are here in the chat. So, hi, Alba. Hi, Tomi. Hi, Sherri. Habari Gani. So just by way of intro, as you all know, Ujamaa, as you all know, today is the 4th day of Kwanzaa, and I'm going to just grab the Kwanzaa Principle now. So the Kwanzaa Principle is Ujamaa, which is Cooperative Economics. And it is definitely one of the more, thank you. It is one of the more challenging Kwanzaa principles. Just one second. Hello. Can you hear Isis?
Hi, Jerry.
Yeah, we're live, and I can hear you. Hold on, everyone. Just making sure that this is working properly. So Isis, can you hear and see? Okay, so while we're working out she can't hear and she can't see. Okay.
I can hear you now.
You can hear. Can you see?
Yeah. Your face seems frozen, but maybe it's just me.
Okay. So far, it's good on my end.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Are we good to start?
Yes, I can hear you. I guess it'll just be frozen on my end, so just walk me through it if you're doing a screen share, but I'm sure you'll keep that up. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for your benefit, Isis, and also for the benefit of those who are in the chat and those also watching this afterwards. So this is day 4 of the Cozy Kwanzaa Reflectathon live shows. I've been doing them every day for 2020 Kwanzaa, and I think this is actually the 4th round of the Kwanzaa Reflectathon here on BookTube, which is the BookTube celebration where we talk about the Kwanzaa principles as they relate to the books that we've read in the past year. And so far, as you know, if you've been coming to all of the live shows, we've had booktubers as guests. And this is a special night because we have Isis from Sistah SciFi as our guest. And Isis is really special because not only is she a reader, but I think, in the opinion of Isis exemplifies Ujamaa, cooperative economics. So I'm really excited that she was able to join. So thank you very much for joining. The reason why I believe that Isis and Sistah SciFi exemplify cooperative economics is because Isis is the woman, the energy, the force behind Sistah SciFi, which is many things, which Isis will talk about. But many of you will know Sistah SciFi as an online bookstore run by Isis, a Black woman that sells books written by Black folk, focusing on, as the title of the store will suggest, science fiction and other forms of Black speculative arts. Isis and I met several years ago when through the internet, so you can tell our origin story, but we've collaborated on a number of different projects. So Isis is one of the 3-person team that is bringing to you the Octavia E. Butler slow read, which many of you have participated in. Isis is also a co-lead of the solar-powered Afrofuturism slow reading group on Facebook, and those aren't even the main parts of what Isis does. So maybe we can start with you just talking a little bit more about yourself, about Sistah Sci-Fi, and your relationship with in particular, like the Black science fiction community, and what you do.
Yeah. No, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, it was. I feel like it was almost 2 years ago, like to the day, because I found you through your review of the Gilda stories, and I was organizing a Gilda story book club discussion in that following February. And I was just like, and Jerry's a genius. And I just wanted to listen to these booktube reviews all the time. And I think at the time you were doing a Kwanzaa read along. So this feels like full circle to me. So I'm my sister Sorry. I run Sistah Sci-Fi. I think the spiel is we try to be a culmination of all things, as many things as possible: Afrofuturism, fantasy, speculative fiction, Black sci-fi, casting spells to uplift literature and work primarily by Black women, and just be a part of that community. So being part of Solar Power Book Club has been great. Sporadically, we do Sistah Sci-Fi book clubs and watch parties. Last year, we did several discussions on Midnight Robber. We've done watch parties with Quelly TV. And Ujima is literally my favorite Kwanzaa Principle. So I was like, yay!
I'm so glad.
It's coming through. It's not just in my head. And it started like my college dorm was called Ujamaa. I don't, may have been
Where'd you go to college?
Stanford University, Stanford, California. It was Ujamaa, the African American concentration house, and there was a higher percentage of Black people in that dorm than the other dorms. It wasn't so high to do, and historically in a predominantly white college. But growing up in a house of West African parents, that was actually my introduction to the Kwanzaa celebration. So that was awesome. And just tying the diasporan experience, I got to sit in like my very traditional Ghanaian heritage, and then also see African Americans being very systematic in taking these principles and bringing it into the day-to-day. So I always enjoyed the Kwanzaa celebrations. For me, systematic economic change is like the foundation of any social economic change. So a lot of the women's rights movement started with women being able to work outside of the home. If you think about the Harlem Renaissance, a lot of that started with the migration of African Americans to the North and having different types of jobs, and then having that disposable income to then express themselves as artists and create and so forth. So to me, cooperative economics and having systems where Black people and women and people who tend to stay historically outside of the majority economic systems and having alternative routes is kind of foundational to any other type of liberation. So that's why Ujima has always struck near and dear to me. I always get excited about Black entrepreneurship, especially when we leverage technology in new and innovative ways to amplify our voices and our creativity and our passions and what we're excited about.
Cool. And And I think I think not only do you have a passion for it, but you have a talent for it. Like you're wired and oriented toward that entrepreneurial perspective. And so this is actually the first time I've heard you speak on this, which is kind of nice. I've just seen you do it, but it's really nice to hear you speak on it. And I want to just like also bring another Black woman who also inspires me around her business into the virtual space, and that's Brittany from Melanin Eclectic. The two of you have definitely taught me, and also Tommy, who's literally on the other side of this wall, who also is a consultant and who teaches me a lot about like the entrepreneurial spirit and the importance of owning our own stuff, being our own leaders and bosses, and being able to self-determine financially and economically. And while there's certainly trade-offs in doing that, you know, I'm definitely inspired when I hear people say stuff like, in a year, I want to work for myself. I want to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient. I don't want to have to ask somebody for vacation. I don't want to have to ask, you know, somebody to do this or that. I want to be able to set my own course. And I think that that is, I'm not wired that way. And so I completely, I'm in awe of people who are, because I think that is important. And so just for those of you who are here now, as you know, what we've been doing with these chats is first having a little like me talking to whoever's joining me on the chat, and then we turn to the words of the principle. So I want to talk a little bit about cooperative economics, because Isis, like I didn't know that this was your favorite. It makes sense that it is, but I didn't know that it was your favorite of the principles. And I find that in the years that I've done the Kwanzaa Reflectathon, this is actually the hardest for folks to kind of match up with books. And I think that there's a reason for that. And if I can just like put on my soft conspiracy hat for a second, I agree with you. I think that being self-sustaining and being financially interdependent as Black folks, and for me, I'm a part of the Black queer community, and that's very important to me as well, because I, you know, having experienced homophobia from Black business owners, I don't take for granted that buying Black will always mean supporting the emancipation of my Black queer family, period. But I think that it's interesting that the literature that we read, the science fiction and the fantasy, doesn't always center, you know, economic interdependence, and doesn't always show Black people owning our stuff, defining our stuff, profiting from our stuff. Like that is not an image that we see even in a lot of the Black science fiction and fantasy, right? Let alone mainstream literature. So it's kind of interesting that it's interesting and not surprising that people who follow the Reflectathon find it a little bit difficult pairing the principle of Ujamaa with the books that they've read. Why? Because people aren't writing about it, right? And they're not writing about it enough. Now, I do have two books, at least two books that I would recommend that for those in the chats who have said, you know, this was a hard one for me. One book is the African Immortals series by Tanana Reebdu. And in that is like it's a vampire story, period, right? The African Immortals are vampires. But they have found a way to create an economic system around blood, because obviously the blood of vampires does mystical things, right? And so there's a whole like economic system that is brought to the fore and becomes part of the plot. Who controls it? Who profits? What are the markets like? Right? So that's definitely one. Another one is Parable of the Talents and Parable of the Sower, which is about it's about the cooperative side of economics. So not economics in terms of finances and money, but in terms of the usage, the exchange, the protection, and generation of resources in the context of apocalypse, right? So like those are two. The third is also the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, right? Which again is, what do we do? What do we do when there's a fifth season? How do we survive? How do we control human resources? Should human resources be controlled? What are the economic alternatives? And we see collectivism versus capitalism versus other different kinds of like economic systems. So for those of you who have been asking for examples, like those are a couple of examples of books that I've read that kind of connect to Ujamaa. So Isis, in terms of like for you, when you think of books or any kind of Black science fiction or fantasy that you've come across, have you seen those themes reflected in books that you've read?
Yes. And I would say, I think I'm constantly looking for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So everything looks like a business opportunity. So, or like they're discussing cooperative economics. And so my sister at the start of this year's Kwanzaa, she has been pulling quotes from the different books that we sell on Sister SciFi and tying it to a different Kwanzaa principle. And so this morning I was like, I'm doing this. I want to make sure that we have the right book. Getting like the right quote was kind of interesting, but we ended up going with the Kata Witch.
Yes.
You're like, oh, this is different. Mostly about, and she and I went back and forth, the market in leopard knocks, because all those, it's everything from herbs to cell phones to computers to computer software. And all those businesses are owned by the leopard people, right? And they're able to create this space that's only accessible through an invisible bridge where their dollars are circulated and they have everything that they need within that community. And not a financial system where people are paid through, not through manual labor or so forth, but through the accumulation of knowledge. So we went back and forth, and I was like, "Oh no, I think we should do something else." But it's emblematic of what the founder of Kwanzaa was calling us to do with this principle, which is to build and start and maintain our own businesses, to circulate that Black dollar, and to do it in a way where we all grow financially. Very different from like traditional capitalism, where you start your business, you charge as much as possible, and you take all the money and run off somewhere. But it really should not only be a successful business, but a business that uplifts the community. And also that level of cooperation. We also talked about Midnight Robber. So there's a part where Tan has left home and she's living with the Duans, and the Duans live cooperatively in these large trees. And they get their resources that way. So we talked about that one. We talked about Binti and how the desert people kind of interact using the technology from the Zenaria. That was a bit of a stretch, more on the cooperative side and the technology side, but not necessarily the owning businesses side. So we, like, for me, I think I see it a lot because I'm always looking for it. There's a quote in Sister Mine where she is looking in, she's left her sister's place, moving to Cheerful Rest, which is an apartment complex, but is also where a bunch of artists live together. So they live together, they work together, they create together. And that space, like the first time I read it, is like, this is exactly kind of like the cooperative living situation that I want, where there's that shared economic resources, which allows for people to create and be representatives of their culture. So I tend to see it a lot in the reading, because I'm always looking, and definitely Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents is a great one. How does she access these resources for such an ambitious dream? It's not like she's like, I just want a home and a house and land, or she's like, I want to go to the stars. Taking cooperative economics to a whole new level. So I tend to see the theme a lot because of my framing.
That was fucking awesome. that was amazing. You got me looking at the stories in a different way, and also thinking about Ujamaa and how it is reflected in ways that I just didn't appreciate. And as you start talking, and I'm so glad, because I'm always glad when people start talking about Nalo's work. So you mentioned Midnight Robber and
Sister.
Sister Mine, and then I started thinking about Brown Girl in the Ring, and how like the main character's grandmother operated basically like a botanica in the middle of Toronto in this farm, and actually like I used to hang out at the farm that was based off of.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's like so yeah, so people would come for herbs and stuff, and they would trade because not a lot of people had money. And then her grandmother is like, her position in the community is as an elder, and of course that's juxtaposed against the gang leader, right, that wants to like use up everybody's resources and basically control the people who are left in the urban centers, which have all turned into like slums and so on. Yeah, and you're right, like if you're looking for it, and if I guess it's not only that, like you said that when you're a hammer everything looks like a nail, and I'm like that I totally get that. And I also think if you value it, right, because you
Right.
value, like, cooperative economics is part of your DNA, right, if I may apply that to you. But like, it's, if you value it, you recognize it, right?
Right.
So I think it's gotten me thinking about the extent to which, like, do I value cooperative economics as much as I want to say that I do? So that's sort of some self-reflection for me, because it might actually be present in what I'm reading in ways that I haven't yet been able to perceive.
You're right. And I think and I think that's why I use, like, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, because it's really not a matter of but how you operate in the world, right?
Yeah.
So, and then hence why you're looking for that. Like for me, since a lot of my career has been in corporate America, there are like, what are the how to create sustainable business models, right? And so when I read sci-fi, I'm always looking like, so what are alternatives to this very individualistic capitalistic model that most of the Western world operates in? And so since that tends to be first and foremost in my mind, I'm looking for like, could this be an example? Could Earthseed be a sustainable example that we bring into the real world? Could the ways of living of the extraterrestrials in Lilith Brood, could that be adjusted and brought to real life? And you brought up the African immortals, like that's something that I enjoyed about Fledgling, like how they lived in community and like extended their wealth. You see similar themes in the Gilded stories, where because they have such long lives, they can think about intergenerational equity much different than, a human being. And in particular, what does that mean for a Black vampire, right? Like this concept of intergenerational wealth. So it's one of the questions that's on my head as I read sci-fi. So it's how does the shift in technology and the social mores impact how primarily Black characters think about wealth, build wealth, move about, and make their living?
Can we talk about this? So you're blowing my mind, and I'm very grateful for this. I'm very grateful for this. I'm learning so much. Thank you. And can we talk about vampires and intergenerational wealth? Because as you were talking about that, I was like, that is an amazing observation, and that is such an example of the value of Black science fiction and fantasy. Because if you think about Interview with the Vampire, if you think of Dracula, what do you think of? Some white man in his own big castle that he has on a hill, right? Even the Cullens, God forbid, I can't believe I'm talking about Twilight in this context, but that model of like a very filthy rich white family or white man living in a beautiful castle on a hill somewhere with all of the money, right? And what do we see? Even in the modern vampires, right? We see that they own multinational corporations and they operate them by themselves and whatever. But if you compare that to the Black female vampires that we see, or Black queer vampire stories that we see, there's a whole different urgency. Like I remember in the Gilda stories, like the Gilda character gives a bunch of money and resources to someone that she's fallen in love with, but will not act on that love because of because she'll eventually die and she wants her to have a human life. But she's the beginning of like I don't know if it's an abolitionist movement, but it's like a political movement. And she's like, here, take this, right? And do your work, like do the right work, do the work that will lead to emancipation, because, you know, I'll be there to see the fruits of your labor, right? I'll know your great, great, great granddaughters. And I know that if I take you off path because we fall in love and run away somewhere, you're not going to do this important work. So go and do that, right? And there are all the examples that you mentioned, fledgling for sure, living on those compounds, and like the value of family and community wealth, you know, and how much was it Shori? How much Shori needed to protect that. Yeah, awesome. This is, yes. I feel like I want to go through my library again with these questions and to discover different examples of things. Okay, so let me go to the chat. We're going to go back in time. And I'm just going to run through Isis, the different comments that people have. So people usually start off by saying, hi, Alba, and Tommy, and Sherri.
Hi.
Ujamaa. Hi, my written voice. And Cordelia, everybody, welcome. Hi, Tati.
I can see all this.
You can see it, right?
Yes, I think I was looking at private chat and I was like, I wonder where these chats are.
Oh,
yeah. And so my written voice also, so going through the highs.
And then there's Erica from the Broken Spine. Isis. And a lot of people, just like as a shout out to you, like I've watched a lot of booktube videos today, and I love to hear when people say, oh my gosh, I got this thing from Sistah SciFi. So I just watched Sherri's video, and Sherri, what was you were unboxing a book that you got from Sistah SciFi, and like she showed the bookmark and everything. So like lots of support here. I'm trying to remember what book you bought. Oh, it was the Octavia Butler Seed to Harvest bind up that she got from Sistah SciFi.
Awesome. I'm glad you got it, because I think the bind up, at least in that form, is going away, at least for some period of time. So I'm glad you got the bind up.
Yes. Sarah is in the Netherlands. And Regina Renee, welcome. And T, hello. And love that the guest is the owner of a Black-owned centric bookstore. Also love Sistah. As I said, he loves Sistah SciFi and is a stan. And so is T. So that's awesome. And yay. Alba. Gina.
Hey, Tati, I think I see you on there. So
yeah, Tati's there. Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm glad to know that you're doing a video, Gina. Hi again. Hi, Caleb. Hey. Okay, lots of highs. African Immortals, yes. So their eyes were watching God, and Parable of the Sower illustrate the principle through literal cooperative economics in small Black communities. Yeah. So, gosh, I haven't gotten to Zora Neale Hurston's work in a while. It's been a while. I don't even remember the plot for Their Eyes Were Watching God. Have you read that one?
And I read it, and I don't know, it must have been like an interesting period of my life, because I feel like I was reading like Quicksand and Passing, not by Zora Neale Hurston, and then for some reason I felt like, I don't know if I was distracted while reading it, some of the key themes in Their Eyes Were Watching God did not resonate with me for whatever reason. So I'm sure it does exemplify cooperative economics. I would just have to go back and read the book, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was a while ago. So yeah, that's when we're taking notes. Everybody's taking notes. Akata. Wayetu more, she would be king. So Sarah, I want to hear more about that. I'm just looking at the story. Have you read She Would Be King?
I haven't. It's been on my radar, and then it
Yeah.
comes up. I used to organize.
Actually, go ahead.
Uh,
I totally see it, Sarah. I totally see that because it's about the founding of Liberia.
yeah.
And so number one, like, period.
Right.
And number two, that the goal, right, was, okay, this slavery thing is not working for us. So let's like go back and found Liberia. Let's start this society that is not built on the white supremacist, the capitalist, the colonialist, sort of industrial hungry, industry hungry way of doing things, right? That's let's do something completely different. And while the story itself, that's not necessarily the climax of the story, but it does show a comparison between what the British were attempting to do in their colonial project and what freed African men in particular, and some white folks were intending to do, at least in this fictional Liberia. And then you've got the superhero narratives and all of that. So, yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Sarah.
that parallels really well with some of the similar themes in Everfair, right? Like where you had this community of people going back to the Congo and trying to make a more, like the whole goal was to make an egalitarian society.
Right.
So yeah, agree with that 100%.
Although I feel like in Everfair wasn't a society of white leftists that said that they were going to create a society that would involve the emancipation of African people, so they needed them as a part of like an uprising.
So it was like white leftists that got some funding. There were Christian African Americans. There was, one of them, like our French white passing woman. So it was a hodgepodge, and then also some indigenous people.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have to read that again. Yeah. Cool. So Anyanwu's Land and Wild Seed. So again, like, it's interesting. A lot of the stories that we're talking about are stories in which the author has offered like different viewpoints on economics and have offered like more than one economic system, so that while you're reading it, you can actually compare what this group is doing against what this group is doing. So like in Wild Seed, we have a comparison between Anyanwu and how Anyanwu creates her villages from the way that Doro created his. And one could argue that like both were cooperative in one way, but like I don't know. Like there's yeah, I think we all have Doro issues. I'm gonna stop. I'm not. No, Doro wasn't cooperative. He wasn't.
I was like, I think that's, but
I think Doro thinks that it was co-op. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. There's nothing redeeming about his approach to controlling resources. It was only Anyanwu. Anyanwu was a cooperative environment. Yes, Sherri, got it. I just had to think out loud to get there.
So, and I would just, I do have like, because I love sharing videos, and there was references to, it's cutting a little bit. So Esther mentioned Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then your name isn't the Broken Spine, but I mentioned
Erica.
Erica, Eatonville, and I think that was Their Eyes Were Watching God, also another all Black community. So I have, if technology works fine for me today, a 30-second portion of a trailer of a documentary that talks about Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's like,
does it allow you to share the screen? Does it give you that option? Okay.
Yes. So I'm sharing. Okay.
How long's the clip, Isis?
I'm showing 30 seconds of the clip.
Okay.
Okay. So you should be able to see my screen.
I'm adding it to this. Now I'm adding it now.
Great. And I will, hopefully the sound is okay. I'm going to turn my volume up to the max. And just ping me in the chat if you can't hear.
Okay.
Can't hear.
Black Wall Street is a name given to Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as a historical city where blacks thrived. It was a prosperous city with over 600 successful businesses.
They were able to create an economy that allowed them to get all the things they needed without having to go to other communities to get those things.
If we use our money and our dollars, we can build up our neighborhoods. And that's exactly what they did.
You had a community of over 10,000 people. You had many black doctors. You had many black lawyers, black professionals, black millionaires. You even had brothers owning planes.
So whatever there's...
So we'll stop there because it gets kind of sad after that. But yeah, and so I love that example of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, even though it had a very tragic end. And you see that like that theme coming into like modern sci-fi, like it served as one of the plot foundations in Lovecraft Country, and then also The Watchmen. And it's a very keen example of like cooperatively Black communities can do this, right? We can pool our resources, own our own shops, maintain our own shops, circulate the Black dollar, and have some level of financial independence while we operate in this larger system where requires some economic interdependence.
So I have a question for you, which I kind of foreshadowed a little bit earlier. And I'm asking this question from my perspective as a Black queer person, because one of the difficulties that I have around supporting Black business is that, at least in Toronto, there's a fair number of like very popular Black businesses that have either engaged in like overtly homophobic and transphobic ways, or who covertly do so through their inactions, like they're by like no support for like not celebrating pride, for example, or like not including the names of queer Black people when they talk about Black Lives Matter, not using gender neutral pronouns. So you can tell that there is, like, I don't believe that in 2020, like, I don't think that you can sort of feign ignorance anymore around those kinds of issues. So I see them as deliberate omissions. So how do you reconcile the ways supporting Black businesses with the ways that some Black businesses might be very myopic in their view of what it means to support the Black voice or Black peoples? Like, where do you draw the line?
Right. And I think a lot of my earliest ventures into entrepreneurship, I was like, why have I never like really questioned, were like queer first. So then so a lot of my connections around entrepreneurship, like I was doing something hyper queer. So then I connected to other Black businesses that were, if not queer, hyper queer affirming, or at least queer accepting, right? Mm-hmm. And then also like there's a coast, like I live in the Bay Area, so like at this point, even if something is like started by someone who historically you would think might have some issues with queerness, like it's the Bay Area, like it's kind of ubiquitous. You have to like find some level of understanding. So it hasn't necessarily been a major challenge. So as I think about like Oak Stop is a Black-owned co-working space here in Oakland, founded by a heterosexual man. His background is in the arts. He wanted to form a space for the arts. So there's naturally like a large level of openness for queerness. So when I was like, I'm looking for a venue to host B. Steadwell, not only was he like, oh, that sounds great, but like, I think B. Steadwell is super talented. I followed their work. Like, he got it, right? There was no explanation necessary. When I was looking for a venue to do like sister sci-fi movie screenings, which are always hyper queer, and talking to venues, like there was one, because it's Oakland, Shoe Gallery, which also doubled as an event space, and the owner got it, right? And when I was younger, and a lot of my work in economic empowerment was like Black nationalist organizations on the East Coast. And I think and this was 20 years ago, to date myself, I definitely think the focus was Black people, right? Like very straight, very heterosexual Black people. I think a lot of people, like looking back at those times, right? Organizers of Black August and so forth, have an awareness that that definition of Blackness is more expansive, or I hope, especially as I look at like different communities where I find other Black small businesses such as Afropunk, like it's very intentionally queer affirming. I'm bringing queer people to the front. Like when I was vending at Afropunk last year, I didn't feel any concerns about being there with the woman I was dating at the time and being very open about that. Like they actually had a mini drag ball in the middle of the concert. And this is like in South Africa where and had several panel discussions of like what it is to be queer and Black. So for me, I've never had as much fear. And while there's some conversations about tolerance, like I realized that the goddess did not put me on the earth to convince white people not to be racist. However, about conversations of, yes, there are gay Black people, there are gay Africans, there are gay Caribbeans. Those are conversations that I want to have, right? And I've had them with my family. And I love having those conversations, like, because I think sometimes it gives people a safe space to ask questions that they're afraid to ask, to confront their own stereotypes and their own prejudices. And I personally have seen a lot of growth because I grew up with a West African father who, like, we didn't talk for 2 years because this may be too much information. I was having sex before marriage. So he was literally the last person I told when I was coming out. And then by the time I came out, he was like, yeah, I know, I'm proud of you, I love you. And no matter who you date, man or woman or anything in between, I know that that person will be good for you and good for the family. And he's like, he was able to come to that conclusion because Barack Obama was very public about being okay if Malia and Sasha were gay. And it's just huge to see that growth. So even if I were to experience that, I'd be happy to have that conversation. It's just, when I think about small business owners in Seattle, like one of the few Black-owned bookstores in Seattle, outside of Sistah Sci-Fi, was owned by a Black lesbian. A lot of my Black lesbian friends own like different businesses, if it's coffee shops or restaurants. So other very queer affirming.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think it's an important conversation to have, and it's also a conversation that people are uncomfortable sitting through. You know what I mean? Like in the past 5 minutes, we've been talking about Black queer identity. We've been talking about how important it is to have these conversations intergenerationally. We've talked about examples of acceptance, and so on. And also in this time, like, we don't know people's reasons, but we've had 4 people leave the live, right? And so, and even on my channel, like I don't get downvotes usually because booktubers are generally like mild-mannered. But when I do a haul video or a video where I'm reviewing a book with a very queer subplot or main plot, I get comments, right? And so it's important, I think, to center this conversation in Ujamaa, because without Black queer folks centering the conversation, it doesn't generally happen in my experience. And there's been a lot of really powerful work done in Kwanzaa communities by Black queer folks, and I like that. Tommy and I talk a lot about like different places in the U.S. that seem a lot cooler than where we are in Toronto, in terms of just sheer numbers of Black queer folks and the diversity of Black queer folks. It's great to hear the examples about the Bay Area. I want to just go back to some of the comments. So you chose Redefining Realness by Janet Mock. You felt like her story about sex work and her sisters protecting each other, looking out for each other, felt reflective. Yeah, for sure. Like in the ballroom movement, like having houses as like examples of collectivism and cooperative economics, and also protection from the state racist state intervention. That's an amazing example as well that endures.
Agreed.
The Pearl Klieg series with the blue-eyed dude. Can't remember any of the names. Read them so long ago. Okay, that's cool. Babylon Sisters. I don't know that one. So, but it's out of survival and more so in response to how hard it is for trans folks, to navigate healthcare and the legal system like nothing is free or even affordable. 100%. 100%. So the shop area, that's what you were talking about. Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. Might have been a bit of a stretch. All good. And then we've got Binti, but you're already using it for Wine and Wild Seed. Thought about it, how much you hated Doro. Yeah. Doro is so available for us to. He lends her his voice so she can deal with her insomnia, which is affecting her business, and she gives him her expertise on how to show his escape room needs to be. Okay, so there was an exchange of resources. Okay, that's fair. I see that. I'm sure there's a lot of nonfiction that illustrates this principle. I'm thinking about maroon communities for sure, Gully and Geechee communities for sure. I'm more familiar with the maroon communities than I am with like Gully. I'm not even sure what Gully and Geechee communities are. I just know that, is that the same as the Gullah? Like, is Gullah the language?
So Gullah Geechee communities are a community of African Americans, the South Sea Islands, in the southern states of America. And so within the US, they have like the highest concentration of African culture. So we actually took a trip there. We're in college.
Nice.
And because they're somewhat remote, there's a lot more bartering, a lot more like locally sourced artisanship in terms of food making and different crafts and so forth. And just as a means of foraging and survival. So that was awesome. I always love the story of maroons. Like every time I go to Jamaica, I'm like, we're going to do another maroon tour. And people are like, how many times are we going to go see the maroon? I was like, every time.
Every single time. So that's what we do. I've never gone, but I've heard lots of people saying like that's something you need to do. It's also like paying respects as well. I'm writing down all these titles. Thank you. I know why the cage bird sings because my Angela's grandmother's shop. Okay, cool. Hi, Michelle. Pattern Master. Intergenerational wealth, legacy building. Yes. How we define wealth. Yeah, 100%. I think that I remember being taught the concept of community wealth, and that like having people who come after you, whether like you've birthed them or other people have birthed them, whether it's chosen family, whether it's found community. But knowing that you are of a people, and that those people are of a people, that in itself is wealth.
Right.
And it might not be, may not be monetary, but it certainly is economic. Even in that it can relieve the pressure that some feel to rely on dollars. So if you know you have 15 cousins, right? You're probably, assuming they're all healthy, right? Like healthy in terms of like emotionally, psychologically healthy and not harming you. But if you have like 15 good cousins, then, you know, there's a kind of relief that can potentially, that comes with knowing that you're surrounded by people who care about your well-being, right? And that can relieve, because if you don't have that, then you have to think about, how am I going to afford to eat, to live, to sleep, right? So community as well. Tomi and I have been thinking a lot about that too. I'm not sure which lens you're referring to, but I'm hoping that it's the defining wealth piece. Red at the Bone in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay, so that's what we were talking about, Esther. Good conversation. I know. Let's just like let that marinate 100%. Seed to harvest. Okay, yep. Eyes were watching God. That's the name of the town. Is an all-black town, so all the money circulates there. Okay, cool. Edenville. Okay. Right, Eatonville. Hurston's hometown. Okay. Got it. Just catching up.
No problem. Oh, okay.
Edenville. Yeah, we can. Toronto's Main Street. You're welcome. But God has put me on this earth didn't put me on this earth to convince white people not to be racist. Put that on a shirt. And you probably will, because Sister Sci-Fi sells t-shirts too. I should have my Sister Sci-Fi t-shirt on. Crap. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
What's yours?
So this is actually from Black Girls Code, which is a version of the Arthur shirt, which I'm like, oh. So because it's Black Girls Code, there's one.
Oh.
They have the names.
Only one unfortunate name there. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm just being stupid. So Octavia Butler, Nettie. Who's under Nettie? It's Nettie Okorafor, and then Tomi Adeyemi.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kate Jemison. Is Nalo Hopkinson on that?
Yes, she's on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the top has Imagining Black Futures. So yeah.
I love that shirt.
Yeah.
I also love your earrings.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, these are earrings I either got at Afropunk or got in Johannesburg at Afropunk. One of the two. So and I will say, like, oh, for folks who love my lipstick, we'll say that this is Mint's, a Black-owned cosmetic company. So
nice. Considering Gullah Women, you would include the film Daughters of the Dust.
Yes.
Yeah. I need to watch that again. I might do that over the holidays.
Yes.
I watch it I used to watch it like every 10 years or so, right? I can't believe I can start talking in decades, but like I used to watch it a lot. And yes, each time I watch it, it feels different. So that's definitely something. Yes, I'm petty. Yes, fully decked out in Black-owned stuff. Love it. Yes. Okay. So we are almost at time. Do you want to walk us through the Sistah Sci-Fi website to show us like what we can find?
Yes.
Oh, and while we're doing this, so this is a Christmas present that I got from Tomi that I'm wearing. So I have these little cowrie earrings, sterling silver cowrie earrings, and a pendant, and they're cowries, as I've said 18 times. And this was made by Omi Woods, and Omi Woods is a Black-owned online jewelry company as well. And what I like about Omi Woods is that, like, I wear a lot of like like, jewelry made out of lots of different kinds of materials. My favorite is wood, but Omi Woods actually creates pendants and earrings and bracelets in sterling silver, but also in actual real gold. So you can get, I think the lowest carat is 10, but you can get like 10 and 18 and 24 carats, because as you'll see on her website, like, she says like a lot of, in our cultures, a lot of our wealth was worn, right? And so you can buy and collect gold as an investment, a wearable investment, because gold doesn't go down, right? And so you buy it and you have it as legacy. So if you're also interested in like buying gold, because like we need to be wearing gold, right? If you want to buy gold, if you want to wear sterling silver and you want to not buy it from all those other places, you can check out Omi Woods. She's got these beautiful like coins and like coin necklaces and layered stuff. So that's also something. Okay, are we ready to look at your site? Yes.
Yes.
Let me just add to stream. Okay.
Because I'm looking at my social. But yeah, so that's okay, we're sharing. So this is sisterscifi.com. It's not perfect, but there's always room for improvement. So this is Octavia Butler-Reed that I do with Jerry and Tati, who's also on the call. So the 2021 Solar Power Book Club bundle is live. If you buy the bundle, you get 20% off the retail price. Last year's book bundle, which was the number 2 selling item on the site, is also on there. So this is the landing page. If you scroll down, there's a video, but you've already seen me in the video of some press we've been in. And my favorite part, some customer reviews. We're at 113. So if you bought something, you can go back and place a review. And if you haven't bought something, you can buy something and then let us know what you thought.
Do you place the review on your website? Or is it another platform?
So when you made your purchase, I probably hadn't set up this app yet, but
no, I don't think I've seen it.
You're like, I wasn't asked for a review. Now I have an app that like after, like maybe 2 weeks after your purchase, you'll get an email saying rate your purchase.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I can go back to see if I can do that in hindsight.
It's fine. We'll just move forward. We can do it going forward.
Yeah.
I want to just go down. Can you just scroll down a little bit? Because the whole as seen in, I just wanted to say, I see the O, because you were featured, Sistah SciFi was featured in O Magazine, right?
Yes.
Which is amazing. And I also saw BuzzFeed and Black Girl Nerds, which is amazing. So Pop Sugar, like there's a lot of really great, what do you call it? Like I don't know what you call it, like shout outs or from great labels and brands and so on. So it's been wonderful to see it expand.
Yeah, so like 2020 with shelter in place, people reading more, and then also the Standing in Defiance, people are looking for like Black-owned bookstores, and so I was very fortunate in getting media coverage, so that was cool. Then most of our stuff falls into 3 categories: lit merch, which we'll spend most of the time there because the books are fairly obvious, and then we have comic books. Okay. So this is the shirt. We have an updated version that also includes Nisi's name on here, Black Women of the Future, which hasn't been quite as popular. So if you think, oh, that's a really cool shirt, you can get it now because this is a limited run. So what we have now, we won't restock. The Sister from Another Planet.
Ooh, can you like focus in on that one and also reserve one in my size?
Of course.
Okay.
I
love that.
Yeah. So my sister was like, we need to do something as an homage to Brother from Another Planet, which is a really cool, I think it came out in 1984, where an African-American Black man came, he's an alien and trying to navigate. And so we did this. Working with my sister is great, but there are times during this process where we wanted to kill each other. But she is still my favorite sister. My only sister.
I love that. It's a sweatshirt.
It's a sweatshirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I hear that there's another one, but is that secret? Is that the newest t-shirt secret for now?
Oh, wait.
Can we do a you heard it here first?
Of course we can.
Yay! Tati, you're gonna freak out.
Oh yeah. This one, right?
Yep.
You heard it here first. Mind of My Mind is on the site. Inspired by the Octavia Butler slow read. And Jerry, I'll pause here. Is there anything you wanted to add about it before I ramble on?
No. I'm just excited. I would love for you to tell the story of how you found it and all of that. But it's gorgeous, and I want one of those.
So, and it's not like me, like with faux rights. This is like 100% aligned with like the publisher and the Octavia E. Butler Trust and so forth to publish this shirt. We get it in partnership with Outer Print, which is Penguin Random House.
Buffy's her little dog.
Yeah, I figured. I was like, Buffy, either the Vampire Slayer or her pet. If you join our email list now, I'm going to send out an email blast either today or tomorrow. It'll be 20% off if you buy both the shirt and the book. And then you'll also be one of the first to know Outer Print is launching a Parable of the Sawyer t-shirt sometime next year. They told me I'll be one of the first to know. So if I'll
that means we're going to be the second.
You will be the second. So I'm excited.
A Parable of the Sawyer. That's so cool.
Yeah. Mind of my, and it is definitely a cool shirt.
It's nice.
Yeah, but it's not Parable of the Sawyer. So for people who like more digital stuff, we have audiobooks, which we do in partnership with Libro FM, and ebooks, which we do in partnership with Hummingbird Media. So a bit differently. And then, yeah, we...
I have a question.
Yes, let's pause it.
What if somebody wants to read a book and it's not on your website?
Oh, that's a great question. If you want to read a book and it's not on my website, just fill out the contact us, or there's a little chat with us button, which is loading in a second. Here, this literally goes to my cell phone. You can be like, I wanted book 2 of the African Immortals series. It's not on your site, and I'll special order it for you.
Awesome.
And Jerry, if you feel like there's a book that I should have on my site that's missing, or any of your booktuber community, let me know, and I can add it to the titles that I carry on my site longer term.
Cool. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to show us?
Oh, if I may, I have 3 independent authors on the site, which is oddly enough not coming up. Maybe.
But their books are there because I've seen.
Yeah, I don't. So they come out in all the email blasts. So yeah, I'll take that as a follow-up. So any love that you can show to independent authors, that's like, it's cool to highlight like authors that are published. To me, I think the next step is how to give love to, like, writing is their passion project, but they're super talented, and how to make Sistah Sci-Fi a platform for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for the tour of the Sistah Sci-Fi website. And again, why are we here? We are here today because we are celebrating, well, Kwanzaa, for those of us who actually celebrate it as like the actual traditional sense. Those who are interested in books, those who just want to chat about the principles, not imposing Kwanzaa upon you. But we're here because today is Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics, to build and to maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. And we have had an amazing conversation with you, Isis, whether it be like you taking us through your website, you showing us all the like Black businesses that you were supporting on your actual person with us today. And all of the, like, I'm still thinking about all of the ways that cooperative economics shows up in Black science fiction and fantasy, and the examples that you provided that I need to reflect more on and want to use as a lens as I continue to read. So thank you very much for everything and being an awesome collaborator. I don't think that there are any other questions. I'm just going to take a look in the chat. And of course, like, for those of you who practice Kwanzaa, hashtag Kwanzaa every day. It's not just about like the 7 days every year, but my practice, and I think the encouragement is to use these 7 days as a reset, and to think about how these principles can be infused into life, into our day-to-day. And as an example of like, for me, I like leading things, but I also like collaborating, and that's an important thing. And you know, I think that our communities encourage like one person to like do everything as opposed to like working with others. And for me, like, as long as the attribution balance is fair, because there also is a history of like Black women's shit gets stolen all the time. So like, as long as we do that and we balance and we're kind to each other, those are also really important models. And that's an example of how I try to like work Kwanzaa into everything I do. So I hope that everybody has an opportunity to think about cooperative economics today. And I'm just going to see if there's anything else that Tati and Cabe are having a great thing. So buying your OEB books and a few others from y'all now. Yes. Finish planning your reading goals for next year. Good. You're getting all of Cabe's money, which is great. It's a good place for it to go. So everybody, thanks for watching. Isis, you will have the last word and you can sign off.
So one, thank you, Jerry, for this. Again, my favorite principle, and it's intersected with like Afrofuturism and Black sci-fi. So I'm just like over the moon. As always, the way you put this together and synthesized this was absolute genius. I learned a lot between you and the comments, as always. And what I am most excited about in 2021 is our continued collaboration with Tati, with OEB Slow Reads, with Solar Powered, for all the books that we have lined up for 2021. So yeah, as always, it's a pleasure working with you.
Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thanks, Isis.